Bmo Brown. I'm the owner of Bmo Productions. I am also the president of the Washington Informer Bridge Podcast Network. I'm the leader of the Culture and Trends team at Creative Theory Agency. I am the teacher of music media and music business at The Musicianship. And I am also the solution-baked morning show host of Wake It Bake Will You Be Mo. Yeah. Today, I'll act as your host for our Where the Money Resides conversation. We have three wonderful panelists that we're going to join in right now. First up, we have Miss Ariel Elizabeth Davis, music consultant connected with the Kennedy Center. I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more. Another fellow hustler within the creative industry. What's up, Ariel? How you doing today?
Hey, Bmo. It's great to be here and good to see you as always.
Always.
Yeah, my name is Ariel, work at the Kennedy Center. But I'm actually going to be transitioning from the Kennedy Center pretty soon. My other gig is with the Lewis Prize for Music, and that's what I'm really excited to talk about today. So again, just really excited to be in conversation with you, Bmo.
Awesome. Miss Ariel, you know, we go back, right? Our next guest, we have Mr. Miles Ryan, owner and creator of Seven Drum City. Welcome to the conversation, Miles. If you don't mind, just give a quick 1 or 2 points about what you're up to, where you're coming from.
Yeah, thanks, Bmo. Nice to see you, Ariel. Really pumped to be here. So yeah, my name is Miles Ryan. I'm the owner at Seven Drum City. We're a music hub for musicians and hobbyists to learn, rehearse, and perform. We're located in Bloomingdale on North Capitol and P Street, in those bright yellow row houses.
Beautiful. And
we've got a venue called The Pocket, along with our 14 sound isolated rooms. So yeah, I'm pumped to be here and see what we can figure out, share.
You know,
create.
I'm ready to continue the conversation. And then lastly, and surely not leastly, you might know her as the Pie Shop Lady, but of course, this is Miss Sandra Pasanti from the Pie Shop. Welcome, Sandra, to the conversation. How you doing?
Hey, Bmo. Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody. Yeah, I'm Pie Lady from Pie Shop. We've been on H Street for a little over 11 years now. We do sell pies, but we opened up the venue a couple years ago, and yeah, happy to be here.
Well, I want to thank all of y'all for joining the conversation. We don't have a lot of time, and if I'm speaking humbly, I think who we are is secondary to what we represent, right? When I think of the four of us, I'm reminded that the creative industry in DC is built on the exchange of art for money. As they are mutually exclusive, what we do, I consider us to be the exchangers. We are the catalyst between art and money. So today we have a panel of these three great folks, and we want to talk about specific ways in which other musicians or even creatives who are looking at musicians for examples of how to get to the bread, we want to show you how and where the money resides, right? Y'all remember the man with the singing and the dancing. Okay, let's get to the first question. I want to throw this to our venue owners first. This is Sandra and Miles from The Pocket and the Pie Shop. Where and how can people directly access you to plan shows in the future as they're continuing to open up COVID restrictions? How can we artists get directly to The Pocket and the Pie Shop?
Well, I mean, as far as like booking, how to book a show. Yeah, so for The Pocket, send an email to thepocket@sevendrumcity.com. We have some more info on sevendrumcity.com. We have kind of a lot of branches to our company, and that's right in the middle there. And we'd love to hear from you. We want to get more shows happening. We are open right now. We're booking live stream shows. We had 5 shows in May. We have 6 coming up in June, and you know, I know live streams aren't the same as in person, but we are supporting the artists. We have a stage and we want to hear your voice, and really excited to be able to provide that opportunity. So hit us up if you're ready to rock. If you're not quite ready to rock, we have some band rooms you can rent too.
Sandra, you want to take this question as well?
Yeah, so anyone who's wants to send a booking inquiry can email booking@pieshopdc.com. And we've done the sporadic live streams, but we're optimistically and somewhat cautiously starting to put the feelers out for booking in-person shows in the fall. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything's
okay.
good by then. So yeah, hit us up.
Right. Okay. So I work in music on the intersection between individuals who are trying to take their hobby seriously all the way into like burgeoning professionals. Right. So when I tell them, oh, make sure you book a spot at the Pie Shop, make sure you book a spot at the Pocket, small venues, you have a small audience, everything should be cool. The question that comes back to me is, BMO, do we need to know somebody? Is there a gatekeeper that we should know? Is there some special keywords we need to put in the email so people get our attention? What time do we need to email people? Should I email 4, 5, 6,000 times? Uh-oh, you lost me. I hope you can still hear me.
I can hear you.
Uh-oh, so you can see my face. I just want to know, the people want to know, are there extra steps that people have to take once they send that email to get into the spot?
Sandra?
So, we have a couple of different people who help with the booking and setting up the deals and stuff like that. So once you send the initial inquiry, then there's a little bit of a back and forth just to nail down the date and if you don't already have support on your bill, figuring those details out and that kind of stuff. And then obviously like what ticket price makes sense. And there's a lot of logistics that just, need to get hammered out once the initial inquiry is sent. But besides that, if everything makes sense and, for the venue and for the artist, then, we'll send the we'll put the hold on the date. And then when everything's nailed out, we'll send the confirmation and we'll post the event. That's basically the step-by-step of how it goes from the initial email to when the actual event is posted and on the ticket links and on social media and all that.
Okay. So no secret handshake deals that we got to make behind the table. Nobody in the pie shop. We got to order 3 blueberries to get your attention. Nothing like that. It's just
that would be cool.
Logistics,
I like
right? That would be cool, right? Miles, what about you? Any secret handshakes we didn't know to get into 7 Drum City into the Pocket? I'm asking because these are serious questions that I get all the time.
Well, of course, we still vet the bands that want to get a spot. We want to make sure that it's every show is a partnership,
right?
And bands should know that. We want to promote the band. That's the fun thing too. And so, I'd say at least having something to present, something to. Well, this is just basics. Sandra already kind of said everything that I would have said as well. Have some kind of press kit, some photos, some information about past shows. Again, I'm not the one doing the booking. I have a really talented person, Morgan Clinton, running that for me. And, there's a lot that goes into that. And I kind of let her do some of those logistical pieces, but just have your basics real organized. That makes it easier to get yourself booked. I've been in a lot of bands before too, and the venues I think want to see that you present yourself well and that you're going to be someone that's good to partner with, so that it's less of a risk for the venue to, put all this effort into promoting the show that you're all promoting, that you have some kind of draw. As a small venue, there's pluses and minuses, of course. But and I could expand on this unless we want to kind of keep things moving. I
definitely want to come back to like audience size.
Small venue.
I think that's very pivotal. But before we get there, Ariel, I want to shift this conversation towards you. Miles and Sandra are talking about the basics as it comes to artist development and creating an artist and creating the band and the brand, et cetera, et cetera. Can you talk to us more so on the artist side? Are there like specific strategies? What are some good ways to get to the basics? Because when we get to this moment where artists are asking to play at venues, I mean, if I'm being honest with everybody, we're having a transparent conversation. About 75% of people aren't ready, and they don't even know the steps that they need to get ready. But then we have a wonderful consultant like you. What information, what resources, what pathways could you provide that may be a little cheap? You know what I'm saying? Might be, a little easier to access.
Yeah, that's a good question. Before I go fully into it, I did just want to quickly give props to Miles in particular. Fun fact, Miles and I used to work together years ago on this project called Flash Band, and just seeing how things have blossomed since then has been really amazing. So I did just want to give props in that way. And of course, Sandra, I'm so excited to be on the panel with you and all the amazing work that you do for the DC community, our nation's capital. I would say on the artist side, like, to be honest, like I haven't played my horn since last year in January, but that gig was playing the Grammys with Lizzo, which was amazing. So as an artist myself, having these gigs here and there, what has helped me in the past to get into those kind of spaces and opportunities has been, and this is so stereotypical to say, networking, like, reaching out to people, not being afraid to be told no, just getting a little bit closer so that folks really know you and your expertise and your interests, is really one of the first steps that I would recommend to those that are kind of in that 75% bucket that you named. I think, and I myself have, still, kind of work through this. Like, you get nervous about putting yourself out there because you're afraid of rejection, or you're afraid that, people may view you in some kind of way because you're, putting yourself out there, taking that risk. But I think the more that artists, kind of push themselves past that, the more likely it is that you'll land, something along the way. I would say, in my past experiences working at the Kennedy Center, I've also, seen with Gatekeeper, that those assets, that have been shared are assets that people definitely are looking for, like, having a strong web presence, resume, previous materials recorded. Those are things that, especially now in this virtual age, folks need to see. And so I'd also encourage people, as they're building their assets, to just like ask friends and other musicians and artists around them to take a second, third look, at those materials as well, because that also really helps, as you're going out there and putting your materials out. And then the third thing that I would just mention, because I did also manage a group called the String Queens for about 1.5 years or so. And working with them definitely taught me that, that team effort is crucial when you have a manager, like, working with your manager and also like pushing whoever you bring in as a manager to help get you those doors is super pivotal. So yeah, I would say, ultimately it's a good amount of work, but it's work that doesn't cost anything. It's just about pushing yourself to do it.
Understood. Now there was a Miles, did you have a response to that?
I just hustling, making those assets.
That's right. Ariel, I think you just spoke to a different type of currency outside of the physical money that we think about when we talk about where the money resides, and that's that social capital, right? Knowing where to network, how to network, who to talk to, how to talk to them. That's a good thing. There was a rapper that came out recently. I think it might have been Lil Baby. Maybe. Don't quote me on the rapper, but he said it takes between $500,000 to $1.5 million to make an artist successful. I just want to hear a response from we're in the DMV. This is not, I can't imagine anyone from here paying $500,000 to break a song here. So talk to me, especially if we're talking about smaller artists or smaller venues. Talk to me about the importance of starting small, the importance of, you don't need the $500,000 deal to break out in DC. Talk to me more about that. Let's start with Sandra. Let's start with the Pie Shop, because the Pie Shop, no offense, Miles, I love the Pocket, but the Pie Shop might be my favorite small venue in DC. I just love it. It feels so welcoming. It's so beautiful. I'm sorry, Miles. I love you, man. You got great hair. But I mean, the Pie Shop is great. So, Sandra, talk to me more about what does it mean when you see artists come in and pack out your building? Is it a bigger difference on a national level? Is that a different type of success? Talk to us about that.
I mean, I think with we do have a lot of predominantly local artists that play at the shop, and I think we're sort of that stepping stone, because not everyone can just immediately book a gig at 930 Club or a 500 capacity room or something like that. So in order to build that audience, and I think there has to be these smaller rooms, even though I think having a smaller room is, well, I'm a little biased, but it's definitely a bit more challenging from a business standpoint. I think just trying to make the numbers work and stuff like that. But when we've in the short time that we've been open, I've watched bands go from taking that perfect opening slot, supporting a group that kind of has already been through the rounds, and then their next time back, selling out a show and just going through the right process, I guess. And I think Ariel nailed it on the head. I think there is a little bit of that networking involved. This is being an artist is you're your business. You're running it like a business. So there has to be those connections made, and you have to be smart about it. So I think when I see those bands being calculated and knowing, okay, I'm going to open for this act and introduce us to an entirely new audience that then will love us. And when we headline next time around, they're going to be coming to our show. It's super smart from a business standpoint. They're gaining those followers. And now I have, I don't know if you're familiar with, Bartiz Strange gave us a shout out, and he played the Pie Shop early days, and now he's selling out the 930 Club, a couple years later. So it's possible without probably, I don't think he invested $1.5 million to get there. I think he was just smart and dedicated, and he just played it right.
Yeah, I mean, I would say first thing that came to mind was, let's just look at this question here. I mean, how do you define success, of course, and the amount of money overall that is spent, very relative to what you're trying to accomplish. But same thing that Sandra said. I mean, the power when you pack a small stage, that is powerful, because you get a lot. You're now known as a band that sells out quickly. So now it's such a great leverage opportunity for the next stage, like a larger stage. That's the next step in the stepping stone here. We'll see that you got to be able to pack a small stage, to get booked at the bigger ones. And once you can keep extending that streak, it's pretty powerful as a small band. But building that momentum and leverage, you need the smaller rooms and the ecosystem of venues out there. So, we're, as far as breaking into the mainstream goes, I'm sort of not as focused on that, of course. But like Sandra was saying, everybody goes through it at some point, and you want to utilize these as like opportunities to maximize your potential here. Just fake it till you make it, so.
Ariel, you got something
I mean, one thing that I would chime in, I mean, Sandra brought up this small business model, and I did just want to raise that, because I do think, and even myself, like going through the work of managing a group, I came in honestly a little naive in terms of how much it cost, I should say, to really build, that group and their, profile, like everything from, outfits for every other gig to, the website and maintenance, and, all of those business costs do add up. And so I would say, if someone is making that very clear shift where they're saying, okay, I'm going from, working in this industry to being an artist, or, they're trying to scale their work as an artist, that investment in self monetarily is an important one. I wouldn't encourage anyone to spend $1 million, of course, but I would say, like, it's a small business. It truly is. So in order for things to build, you do have to put some financial resource behind it.
Ariel, I feel like you and I are, Miles probably as well. Sandra, are you a musician? I don't know. I'm just about to make a statement. Are you a musician?
I dabble, but
okay. Okay. I think about Ariel. You and I were in a marching band together, and I think about our development as artists. I feel like it's simple in effect to get better as a musician. You practice, you listen, you get better, you get your armature better, you get better equipment. How do you become a better manager? What skills and tools do you develop in the management game on like the administration side that make you a better and more profitable manager?
That's a good question.
Ariel?
I mean, yeah, I definitely practice that just like I practice my little French horn. I think for me, having folks around me also that were more knowledgeable to help, teach me and steer me in good directions was super crucial and important. Having people that were even open to, me and my development was very important as well. There's an organization that I helped found with another Howard alum, to Howard, of course, Quanice Floyd. She taught me so much, and together we established this organization called the Arts Administrators of Color Network. And there's mentoring opportunities. There are these professional development sessions that I would help organize. Many a time, I would organize professional development sessions based on the question that I had, So I would say the practice thing, applies both as a musician and also as a manager. And putting yourself in the right rooms and the right spaces to learn is super important. And I mean, I don't have my master's degree. I didn't go back to school for that knowledge building. It was strictly, finding the opportunities and diving into them.
Miles, you want to take a crack at that? I know you're also on the intersection between musician on your terms, like owner. How do you get better at that? How do you get better at providing opportunities? How do you get better at being an infrastructure pillar in the DC community? How do you get better at that?
Well, I always try to keep learning. I mean, I think that, especially as an adult and business owner, you always got to keep growing. And, that concept is partly what I believe in that so much that I kind of wanted to help people learn drums back in 2011 when I started teaching in my house. And now we've kind of built to what we are now. But managing a band is, well, for me, my comfort zone is running a business, basically. I just find it fascinating, and there's so many hats to wear and people to meet, and everything comes together. I kind of think about lots of stuff all the time, and everything's interesting to me. So especially music is just so powerful. But how do I get better at doing what I do? I mean, you gotta ask for help, be humble enough to just try to keep your ear to the ground for who knows what you need to know. Ask questions, and then use the answers. Sometimes it's easier to, you listen, but you don't really do something about it. You gotta, and it's easier said than done, I guess. It sounds simple, but I think focusing on growth and learning, of course. It's the same thing with learning new songs, leveling up your skills as a musician. It opens new doors for value you can provide as an artist to other people. You can, you can make a bigger difference that way.
Thank you, Miles. I appreciate that. Sandra, I want to go back to something you said a second ago. You were talking about a very good strategy into growing your audience as a new band, and that was opening for new people. although there are no guarantees in our industry, like you should know that if anybody's listening thinking that just because you have a show you're going to make money, you should think twice. Sorry, laughing at my own trauma. Sandra, are there any other easy strategies, easy wins, low lifts when it comes to either selling out a venue, filling up a venue, opening for a person? Is there any other of these easy wins that you've seen happen at the Pie Shop, easy strategies that you want to share with some of our fellow hustlers out there?
I mean, outside of the right collaborations and solid marketing, I don't think that there's an easy way, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think like anything, it takes time and and a lot of effort. And I don't think there's like any sort of magic formula to sell out a room when you've never played a show before. I just think you just gotta, it's just about taking the time and keep playing shows. And again, just maybe collaborating with the right people and playing with the right people and getting on the right bills and until you're at the point where you're selling out the smaller rooms, and then you can kind of graduate to the bigger rooms or whatever. But yeah, it's a process.
I just had a question that popped up. I didn't email y'all this question, but it just came into my head. This is for Miles and Sandra. So U Street Music Hall closed during the pandemic. Is it still closed? Is it going to remain closed? I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's just say this. All right, so they closed during. Do you feel pressure as the smaller venue owners to kind of fill that gap between the small rooms and the big rooms of 930? Now that there's no intermediate room, it seems like, well, Songbird, other than Songbird, do you feel the need to like maybe do more, provide more in a space where there's less venue space in the DC area?
I think the purpose we serve remains the same. We're a 100 cap room. It's even if you are at a point where you're bringing 25 people to the show, it's going to feel like an awesome show in our space, as opposed to going to a 500 cap room and having 25 people in there. It's not going to feel right. And vibe has a lot to do with it. So, I mean, no, I don't feel any different pressures than, again, like our goal remains the same.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Although I initially was thinking, yeah, I guess as far as the landscape being kind of, it feels like there's not as many venues still standing, I guess. And so there's a little bit of, I suppose, pressure, but it doesn't change what I'm planning to do with my space. I just want to keep reaching our full potential. And I know that if there's money to be made in shows, then businesses will crop up to capture that demand, I think. And, it's unfortunately, real estate's pretty expensive around here. And so I don't know, that's gotta be tricky. However, people are willing to pay for shows and live music and drinks. So, I've got my thing. I'm hopeful that more medium-sized venues will pop up, and that is good for the industry. So I hope that continues to happen.
Thank you. Ariel, I got a question for you. I didn't email this to you either, so I'm sorry if it's a surprise. Not sorry, actually, Jay-Z. Oh man, I forgot the question and trying to be funny. Dang. Speaking of pivoting, right? What advice have you given artists and administrators, managers, agents, whatever they are, whether they call themselves in the moment? What advice are you giving them to pivot in this COVID restriction, virtual, exclusive space?
That's a really good question. I mean, one thing that's been coming up more and more and more within the nonprofit art sector that I have been encouraging people to respond to wherever it makes sense and it fits, is actually something that's not necessarily specific to COVID, but has come during, the past year and a half. And that's the call, around social justice and social impact. I think there are so many of us that have already been doing that work for like our entire careers just by existing, right? Like we've worked in this vein of representation and diversity and equity and inclusion and accessibility and all of the things, right? But with that, there are more organizations now that thankfully are getting their ducks in a row, pulling themselves together finally, and saying we need to be supporting, you know, those people and those artists and those efforts. I mean, speaking of the Lewis Prize for Music specifically, that's a new philanthropy that started about 4 years ago. And it's $20 million that's going to creative youth development organizations across the United States, right? It's one of the only music nonprofits and family foundations that's doing that work. And it's geared specifically towards those after school and out of school programs that are working towards social change, to systems change across the United States. So these are, you know, after school and out of school programs that, you know, provide music education, but also are feeding young people, are providing mental health support to young people, are providing transportation, like all of the things, you know, that a lot of these programs have already been doing, but now there's actually an organization that's like providing resource towards that. So I would say, you know, one thing that I've encouraged a lot of artists and, you know, smaller nonprofits that have come into my sphere to do is to just be like more explicit and lean into that. I think historically a lot of us have felt like we've kind of had to, I mean, no pun, like whitewash, quite frankly, our work and who we are and how we present ourselves. But luckily, you know, I see more and more organizations kind of curtailing those efforts and, you know, speaking truth to power and putting money behind it as well. So that's one thing that I've definitely leaned into over the past year plus with COVID.
Any other pivot advice from Miles, Sandra? Any other pivot advice? I feel like y'all should be the king and queen of pivot. Talk about physical spaces that have survived during a time when you couldn't go to physical spaces. Drop the jewels. I'm ready.
Yeah, well, I can speak to our story over here for pivoting. I mean, you know, right off the bat, I mean, it goes back to, you know, the learn, rehearse, perform motto we have over here. But as far as what we did to survive, I mean, we switched to virtual lessons right away. It was, well, tricky and uncomfortable, especially for drum lessons, taking drum lessons on a video camera. But our teachers are phenomenal masters and warriors, and they stepped up. We went right onto Slack to kind of combine forces and put our heads together to talk about how to do the technology stuff. And people stuck with it. We actually only lost like 30% of our students, which was way less than I thought would happen. It was still sad to walk into the studio and not have anything happening. So used to being noise everywhere and lots of drum beats happening at the same time. But sorry if I'm going off topic here. I kind of switched over to just pivoting in general instead of shows. But of course, with band practices, we started renting out rooms to just individuals by the month. I had some small rooms. I'm like, look, if you're the only one going in that room, it's fine. Let's just do that. So we pivoted to doing that. Got a little bit of money coming in. You know, even though it's not going to bridge the gap all the way, you have to do something and keep hustling. I cut a lot of expenses that I could. You know, I had tough conversations with staff and. But ultimately, my strategy for that was to try to tell everybody that I intended to make sure to rebuild the same team we had from before and bring people down to like even 5 to 10 hours a week instead of 0 and like me doing everything or something, which maybe we would have not lost as much. But like that way, everyone's still on board and growing and being and contributing something and active mentally, you know. So as far as staffing, that's kind of what we did as well. And then of course to the live streams, you know, like again, live streams are live streams. In-person shows are really fun. However, you can create a really cool experience with lights, which is I basically kind of took a risk, and I wanted to fix up our lighting system to make it a little easier to do live lighting. So I invested in that, and we bought a camera. And one camera, it's like $1,000. It was like, I know that we have to do something. Like people were like asking me, are you guys gonna like do something? And you know, because we're so used to doing these community events all the time, they still want to do that. I still don't know if it's the best idea to promote lots of people coming into a small space. You know what I mean? Like we have to stand behind that risk. And so I'm just not ready to do that yet. But live streams are so important, even though it's not the same experience as an in-person show, but it continues it keeps the ecosystem alive. Bands need a stage, and if there's nothing, seeing a totally wiped out landscape, I knew we had this room. I'm paying my rent here. If I spend $1,000 on a camera when there's really not much money coming in, like at least that will it long term, it gets bands to get their band back together. Like they see that there's something happening. DC music is active, you know, then it will pick up steam. By the time we figure it out and do it for a month or two, then it's now really high production quality, and we're running when it's time to open back up. So that was my goal in pivoting for the venue side of things. I think it's paying off. I feel like we're getting momentum. People are pumped, and hope that we're making a difference for the artists too. We've been paying the artists. People are making money. One show we just had someone they cleared $1,800 for one show, which we never would have made for in-person shows for a 70-person space. Yeah, so that was really cool to cut them a check. That's like the best part, is paying the artist that check, you know, be like, this is real. So we'll stop there.
Thank you, Miles. Sandra, you wanna talk about the pivot through pandemonium? Whoever's on these little crow quotes, you're doing a good job. Go ahead, Sandra.
I mean, ultimately, we just started focusing on, you know, the food side of it. We were lucky enough to have pies that we can sell to sort of hold us over during this period of time where we can't have shows. And we've had the occasional live stream. We do the regular weekly Go-Go live stream with Long Live Go-Go. We've created a great relationship with them. And I can't wait for the day that actually translates or transfers over to in person. But I think, basically we were just trying to get creative with how do we make sure pies can keep the pie shop afloat. And then a lot of focus, although, you know, nothing coming from it financially, I think a lot of focus just on advocacy for the local music scene and spending a lot of time on that, which has been rewarding in other ways. It hasn't necessarily kept us afloat, but it's kept me sane, which I think therefore has kept us afloat. But I think it's so incredibly important that, especially right now, it's, you know, something that needs to be, there's just so many issues that need to be fought for and discussed and brought to the city's attention. And, you know, our artists need to be a priority. And I feel like, especially right now, let's put a spotlight on that. So just trying to help in any way I can with that effort. That's sort of been my main push this past year.
Right. Right. I've seen your activity in the DMV stakeholder. So I've seen the advocacy work that everyone is doing. Shout out to the previous panel. I know they came in and talked about some of the wonderful work that's being done that still needs to be done in the DC area to make sure that we have, to Sandra's point, artist equity when it comes to performance, and to make sure that our culture in the city still stays alive. To the people who are watching, if you want to start submitting some questions, please go ahead and do that. I have 2 more spicy questions that I want to give out to our panel, and then we'll start taking some questions from the audience if anyone is interested in asking us any great questions. And make them good now. We got some good panelists here. Make us some good questions. All right, so Miles, you brought up money. I want to talk about specifics. Okay. I want to talk about specifics. Ariel, let's start with you so we can bring some pressure off for our venue owners for a second. When it comes to an artist being paid for an hour-long set, how much money should they advocate for? One artist, 1 hour, how much money should they be asking for?
Yeah. Bimo, that's such a great question. I'll be honest, that's something that I wish our industry had a little bit more of a standardization around. I mean, it's hard though, right? Because you have variables, you have different audiences, different locations, different sizes, different financial, constraints, and all of the above. So it's hard to say, a specific number, but I will say, if someone is going in and spending the time to prepare music, get the wardrobe ready, get all the tech, ready, especially now with this virtual world, I would encourage them to not take anything less than $200 for that hour that they're providing to the venue in their performance. I mean, I've seen that happen a few too many times. I mean, and 200 is low balling it, to be honest, to be very frank. But I would just encourage folks to kind of, just push and ask for more. And I would also encourage, this is an industry-wide thing, for us all to just, put a little bit more financial capital behind these performances and recognize, more fully, the artist contributions. I mean, in full transparency, and I can say this maybe because I'm about to head out, but the Kennedy Center, when I first joined, we were not paying artists correctly. Honestly, I was helping to manage the budget and I saw those numbers come in. And I would say, to my colleagues, both in my department and others, like, we have to do more, especially knowing, as I know, coming from an orchestral background, that there are people that are getting paid 6-figure salaries to be in orchestras that are largely funded by state arts councils, that are largely funded by, national organizations. Like, you have a body of 80 musicians in practically every major city, and they're getting paid like $100,000 plus year over year, usually to play the same music. Yeah. Usually it's an all-white orchestra. Like, there are all those things. So I can't help but compare that world and then see, other artists that I grew up with that I know are just insanely talented, not get that. And I get so heated talking about this, but again, I would just encourage folks to like really value themselves and push, venues even and others to up the money behind the contributions that they're making.
I'd like to see you get more heated about it, because this is such a great conversation. Ariel, even when you just said $200, I don't know if you saw my face. I was like, whoa, because that's not what I've been advocating for the artists that I work with. I've been lowballing, so maybe we need to do something else. But now I'm going to look at my venue owners, $200 an hour per musician. What are your thoughts, Sandra and Miles?
I mean, putting $1 an hour, you don't really think of it as dollars per hour, I guess. It's more what is the split between the venue and the band for however many tickets are sold, and then whether there's a guarantee or not, of course, right? Okay. I mean, that's sort of the basic bones.
Let me pause you right there. So for the pocket, what's like the normal split, and what's like the normal guarantee? If I was coming to you, Miles, first time, young BMO, you don't know me, I say I got a band, we can pack out 120 people, you got 60 people. What's your first offer to me as my first time?
Well, I'm not supposed to say because that's Morgan's job to to negotiate stuff. I mean, it's a little bit of a negotiation. I want to know how many how many followers you got? What's the scoop? So it might vary a little bit, but you know, we have a small space, of course. So the expectation or the total take-home pay potential can't be that big to begin with because we can only sell 70 tickets if it was in person. So therefore, the perspective shifts a little bit for that, just to give the background. But before the pandemic, we were doing 70 to 80% of ticket revenue after about $100, $120 of venue expenses, which is, you know, I feel like pretty generous. But you know, we only were open for 5 months, and we felt like we wanted to. The strategy was to, you know, build a reputation as a great place to be, and we, you know, if you can only sell a small number of tickets, you know, maybe the bigger venues are more in the 55 to 65% range. I mean, that's really not going to be too much for an artist at the end of the day. And I guess, you know, it does kind of boil down to the fact that for us, we have a diverse, other diversity of revenue streams as a company. We rely on the venue too for promotion and community engagement and everything. So it's very important. However, if it was just ticket revenue that we were running off of, it would be tough to sustain, to pay the rent. But you know, the point is to build the artist community, and that will all in turn come full circle. Okay.
Sandra, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think similar to what Miles is saying, it's really hard to put a dollar per hour amount on anything. Similar to the Pocket, a standard deal at the shop would be 85% of the door after, I think, $250 for production costs. So, and then if you're legit and you say, I'm going to sell this room out, and it's like, all right, well then we'll offer you a sellout bonus. You can keep 100% of the door if you sell it out.
Sellout bonus,
So then, you know, depending on the ticket price and if you're actually really putting in that work and promoting it and selling it out, then it's gonna work in your favor. It's gonna work in our favor. It's a win-win. There's plenty of bands who've said we're going to sell the room out and nobody shows up, and then we take the hit. But you know, anyone who says that they run a music venue to make money is lying to you, because if we break even on a show, then it was a good night. Okay, so I mean, you know, I think I wish there was more transparency around the conversation between artists, especially like newer artists in venues. As far as like, it costs us, you know, $700 just to even put on a show. So we need to make sure that we're selling, you know, at least 75% of the tickets at a certain price or whatever, so that it's like, no, we're not stiffing you if you don't bring anybody out. And it's not our, you know, it shouldn't be 100% on the venues, the 100% of the venue's job to promote your show. You know, it has to be a collaboration. This has to be a partnership. It has to be a win for both parties. We're both businesses. The artist is a business, and the venue is a business. So, yeah.
Ariel, I have reactions, but let me hear reactions to the booking at the Pocket and the Pie Shop. Does this sound fair to you?
I mean, you know, I'll go back to what I started with, you know, in my last statement, which is that every venue, every space, every business has its own, you know, variables. So it's hard to ultimately say, as I mentioned before, you know, what a structure should be for the entire industry, right? Like, it's just, it is hard to ultimately say that. But again, for me, you know, as a musician, as an artist, knowing, you know, the musicians and artists that I do around me, like, I think that there is a lot of work that needs to be done within our entire industry to call upon, you know, policymakers, government, whoever is ultimately holding the money, wherever the money ultimately resides, to say, hey, like, we are doing so much to uplift and fortify American culture. So we need this money in order to really help support this industry the way that it needs to be supported. I think, again, so many of us have ended up having to shortchange our own pockets, you know, and we're still a small business. We still have to put money, you know, into our business in order to grow. So I'm not, you know, I'm taking any of those things that I've said before away. But I do think that the music industry as a whole, particularly outside of, you know, this classical field, ends up shortchanging artists, at least in the nonprofit industry from which, you know, most of my experience lives. So I would, again, just, you know, really encourage folks to collectively, you know, push for greater support financially for musicians and artists. I know too many that have even, you know, ended up passing away that did amazing things throughout their entire lives and go broke. Like, that is unfair and ridiculous. So, you know, I just, you know, have a lot of passion around just collectively, you know, pushing for greater resource for musicians.
I agree with you 1,000%. That is so sad to see musicians have to transition to minimum wage jobs or other careers that they know they're not really interested in, just to make ends meet, and then they lose their musicality in the process. I will say, Sandra and Miles, I will say that as a on the street hustler for new musicians on this precipice of professionalism, the things that you're offering are I can't cuss, really fair, are extremely fair. And the reason why I call them fair is because they seem to be more self-determinable than like the venue is holding something against you or gatekeeping you away from a certain price. No. And I wanted to ask you those questions in a very fair way so that the people who I know are going to ask me after this, am I on your side? No, it's not about sides. It's about a partnership. You got to make money. We got to make money. If you keep losing money, we have nowhere to perform. It's really that.
Exactly.
And as Ariel says, there is no state. Maybe DC will become a state. We'll get some state funding. Hey, but right now, there is no state funding to help, you know, mitigate that difference between what's happening in the classical side and what's happening, or more like on the non-classical side. Is that how you say it? I have one more question, but I want to make sure that I leave time for any questions that are coming from the audience. So if there are any questions, please pop those up right now. But as we're getting ready to close out, I just want to ask something that I like to see at end of panel. Are there any, I call them pitch moments, are there any openings in your business, any gaps in your business that you see somebody could fill that gap from like an external point of view, whether that's a booker, whether that's, I don't know, after hour special, or you need a janitor, I don't know, that they feel like this is the perfect time, if you have anything that you feel like you might be missing within your business, to just shout it out into the ethos, and let's see what hustler might fill in that gap. Let's start with you, Sandra, if you don't mind.
We're always looking for talented people. So I feel like even if we don't have the position, like if it doesn't even exist, there's times where we've created a position that will just help out with production and stuff like that. But right now, yeah, if you are interested in helping with some of the, as we get rolling, you know, when we start being able to host shows again,
right.
If you want to help with some of the production stuff, want to help with some of the marketing stuff, and just kind of learning, even like for younger folks, if you just want a paid internship for a little while before school starts or whatever,
paid?
Like, yeah, we're happy. We're happy. We've had folks come through and learn how to, like, you know, learn the basics of sound engineering, learn the basics of like how to put, you know, ticket links together and like stuff like that, just like real basic stuff that's gonna, you know, eventually, if you are managing a band or you want to get into this kind of line of work later on, those are all solid things to learn now. So yeah, hit us up, info@pieshopdc.com. You know, we've got plenty of, I'm happy to talk to whoever is interested in doing this kind of work, for sure.
Awesome. Like, you don't need to buy 3 blueberry pies.
No.
Okay. Cool. Miles,
you should still buy 3 blueberry pies.
I mean, go for it if you're really into
blueberry. And then say that in the email.
That's right. I bought 3 blueberry pies and I want a paid internship. Miles.
Yeah. Well, Sandra answered that question beautifully, and I would probably give almost the identical answer. I mean, we're always continuing to evolve around here. And, you know, if you have something to offer and you think you'd be a good fit with the vibe, definitely reach out. And, you know, we have different needs that keep on changing. So, you know, the live streams, especially, they're actually, so we've got a couple sound engineers on staff here, and they're really, really talented. Shout out to Ryan Plummer and Guillermo Ramos and Morgan Clinton running cameras. But, you know, they're basically running the sound of the actual room, the sound that the audience hears in the YouTube stream, and doing lights. So, you know, it's a tricky job. And then, of course, Morgan, what's that?
That says big work.
Yeah, it's so fun. Like, it's cool to take a photo because it's like all these blinking colored lights, and like you've got the light console, and I don't know. It's like, I'm like, dude, you and all your toys over there. It looks like you're having fun. But anyway, we want to try to have more of a bullpen of additional techs that are, you know, interested and available to help run the shows, if not potentially move on up to running the whole thing themselves. So that's always like good to make us less vulnerable, I guess, in case, you know, we don't have one of those guys for a show. So yeah, info@sevendrumcity.com also works for emailing, and we'll get you started, and maybe shadow during an event, that kind of thing. But marketing internships are always, there's always infinite things to market. And as far as teachers, we're pretty full with teachers at the moment because we're trying to just fill everyone's schedule still. So, you know, we're always evolving. So if you have something to offer, please reach out.
Cool. Yeah, and on my side, as I mentioned, I work with marketing and communications for the Lewis Prize applications, we are opening our applications in just a couple of weeks. These are for after school and out of school music programs. Ultimately, there will be 3 prizes awarded, $500,000 each. This is a national grant, so it's Bimo, you're funny. It's going to be competitive, but there are webinars online, and there will be more informational sessions in the coming weeks to share just more information on how to apply. Again, these are for after school and out of school music programs. I'd also love to give a shout out to Arts Administrators of Color Network. Their people post jobs and internships and other offerings pretty consistently. So that's a really great place. And then I've also been consulting for an initiative called the Hbcu Jazz Education Initiative, and recognizing that out of more than 100 HBCUs, only 6 have jazz grant degree programs, which is crazy in America. But through that network, one thing that we've talked through is an opportunity that South Arts presents that primarily the jazz space. And also our very own DC Jazz Festival, they're hiring right now for an executive assistant position. So that's a great, entry level or first few years of experience level position for folks that may be on the lookout. So yeah, those are all the spaces that I would encourage people to look out for.
Well, I want to thank everybody on the panel. I want to thank Crystal right here doing the ASL. You killing it. I appreciate you doing a good job. You're not silent. We saw you the whole time. Thanks to my 3 panelists. I appreciate y'all being transparent and honest about where the money resides in the DC music industry. I know the industry is a really popping word that's been going on during the pandemic. The money is out there. You got to hustle. You got to work hard. You can go from evictions to commissions. Trust me, I've been there. Thank y'all for joining the Money Resides panel, Funk University. Make sure you buy some tickets for the rest of the Funk the Funk Parade, which I think is available right now, but still buy a ticket and donate to the musicianship so we can keep these free music programs popping in the city. Thank you again to the panel, and we'll see y'all where the money is. All right, goodbye. Wait, do we got to hang up? How does that work?
Pocket. 7 Drum City.